this video, we're going to go over how to set up a Raspberry Pi. The first step is to set up the operating system in the SD card. For that, we're going to be using Raspberry Pi Imager. Go ahead and download the Raspberry Pi Imager. I've already downloaded it and installed it on my computer. Once the download and install is complete, you'll see something like this. I prefer to use Raspberry Pi operating system, the full version of it, so that's what I'm going to select. You can either use the light as well as the full, totally up to you. Then select the SD card that you want to use. Then I'm going to hit right. Yes, I want to continue. This process can take 5 to 10 minutes. Now we'll insert the SD card into the Raspberry Pi. For this example, using a Pi 4 case that has a full-size HDMI on it. Once you insert the SD card, plug in your HDMI and USB cables. You want to do this before you power on the Raspberry Pi. Sometimes when you power on the Raspberry Pi and you haven't plugged these in, it's not going to recognize the device. After a while of powering on, you'll be prompted by a screen like this where you select your time zone, country, language, and keyboard settings. It's going to ask you for your username and password, enter those information, and your account's created and you're all set to start. Now let's look into setting up remote desktop, which will allow us to control the Raspberry Pi from another device. Before we install anything on the Raspberry Pi, it's always a good option to update and upgrade the Raspberry Pi. We're going to do that. After that, we will install XRDP. XRDP allows us to use remote desktop protocol to control the Raspberry Pi. It's going to ask you, do you want to continue? Hit yes. After the installation is complete, enter the command hostname-i to get the IP address out. Once you have the IP address, open remote desktop app on your computer. Now we're going to put in our IP address and connect. When you're first time doing this, it's going to ask you to all these questions to connect. Yep, here's the login page. Enter your Raspberry Pi username and password. In some cases, you might end up getting a blue screen like this. If you get just a blue screen, you need to do a sudo adduser, create a second user. If that doesn't work, do sudo apt-get purge realvnc-vnc-server. This is because we want to remove realvnc. It might be conflicting with the XRDP. I'm going to have a link down in the comment section, down in the description section to this article. So you can just copy paste the commands from there. Now once that's done, we're going to go back. Right now I'm using the original account. See, we're getting the blue screen. Now let's log out of here and log in with the new account we created and see if that works. It's going to be, okay, not this, remote.daspi. Enter the password, log in. Okay, we have those screens. Let's, the Raspberry screen, let's put the password in. Yep, that worked. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comment section if you have any other questions.